welcome to Believers IAS Academy's daily Hindu newspaper analysis. For the first article, we have taken up the article on the front page that says Monsoon Session likely from July 19 to August 30. So this is an important part. It's directly connected to the Constitution part, which comes under UGS 2. So Monsoon Session. What is Monsoon Session? Right. So what are basically the sessions, different sessions in the Parliament? There is no fixed parliamentary calendar. Actually, session is like different. Our MPs, a member of parliaments coming together, to meet. So that is what session is, and they are going to discuss about different various matters. Maybe it's connected to budget, matters of public importance. So this is a session. So there is no fixed parliamentary calendar. It is not mentioned in the Constitution that when and how many sessions should be there and when should be conducted. All these things are not mentioned in the Constitution. So how does it happen? By convention. That means what has been followed, what has been going on, it is still continued. Okay. By convention means the word convention means in this context that it is not mentioned in the Constitution. It is being done because that has been the practice before. And Parliament by convention meets for 3 sessions in a year. So the first session is the budget session, and it is the longest session among the 3 sessions, and it is going to start by the end of January or February and going to last until either the end of April or by the first week of May. So this is the longest session, and in between there's going to be a recession. Alright, it's going to be adjourned, and again it's going to be starting again. So yes, and the second session, so budget session is when the budget is presented in front of the Parliament, when it is in order to go for its deliberation, voting and approval. So this all will happen in the budget session. And the second one is the monsoon session, and this happens after 2 months, July to September. This is how it usually happens, the monsoon session. And during this time, those matters of public importance which require attention of the lawmakers will be taken up for discussion in the monsoon session. And the third one is the winter session, and this happens from mid-November to mid-December. So what has been not discussed before in the session will be taken up in the winter session. So what does the Constitution says about conducting a session in the Parliament? So Article 85 in the Constitution says that the summoning of Parliament should be done. All right, and who does this? The President. The President summons the Parliament. Summon means to call everyone to meet. Okay, and although the President is doing it, it's just a way of formalizing things. The power to convene a session of Parliament rests with the government itself, this central government itself. The cabinet will make that decision, but it is formalized by the President. So also in the Constitution there has been certain things mentioned, like there should not be any gap between two summoning, that summon. So the word summon means that to call everyone to meet, right? So okay, so we'll look at different terms first. So summoning means to call everyone to meet. So as a result, the President summons and everybody is going to meet. And in the Constitution it is mentioned that there should be no gap. There should be a maximum gap of up to 6 months only. So that means at least 2 sessions has to be conducted in the Parliament. So this is one way how it is mentioned. And okay, 2 times in 1 year. Okay, so that was summon. And the second one is adjournment. So here adjournment means we are terminating a sitting. Okay, now there is a difference between session and sitting. Now session is a more broader term, right? A session like budget session, monsoon session, winter session. So the session, it's going to be summoned and it's going to exist for a few months, a few days. That is called a session. But when it comes to sitting, it is when now in a session there will be multiple sittings. Okay, so when it comes to sitting, the parliament is going to sit to meet discussing a specific issue for a specific limited time period. Okay, for a specific time period. So that is a sitting. So terminating a sitting, that is ending a sitting, that is called adjournment. And during adjournment, it will be mentioned that when they are going to meet again. So that is adjournment. But when that decision has not been taken, so while going to end a sitting, the speaker is going to say that not going to mention when it is going to conduct when they are going to meet again. Then it will be known as adjournment signee. So the decision when they are going to reassemble, when they are going to come back and meet again, it has not been taken. So that is adjournment signee, that they have been adjourned for time, and that time period is not mentioned when they are going to reassemble again. Okay, the next term is prorogation. So this is the end of a session. So like budget session, monsoon session. So who is going to do this? The president is going to do this. So prorogation. All right. So it is going to end a session. And the gap between prorogation and the next meeting, the reassembly, that will be known as recess. And also, you have to know that it is not the dissolution of the house. It's just end of a session. The house is not getting dissolved. So in case of Lok Sabha, because obviously in case of Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. So in case of Lok Sabha, when we mean prorogation, it means that it does not mean dissolution of the house. It means that just a session is ending. Next, another term is quorum. So what is quorum? Quorum is the minimum number of members that is required to be present in the parliament for the parliament business to go on, or for the meeting to happen. So minimum numbers of members required for the parliament to conduct a session, that is quorum. So the quorum is actually 1/10 of the total strength of the whichever house it is. For example, in Lok Sabha it is 55 members, and in Rajya Sabha it should be at least 25 members. So that's all about the different sessions of the parliament, the different sessions. That's what we have been talking about. So the second article is about the government giving nod for Cipla to import Moderna's vaccine. So Cipla is a company based in Mumbai, Indian company, who is going to import Moderna's vaccine. So Moderna has designed a COVID-19 vaccine, and it has our Drug Controller General of India has given approval for its import. So we need to know that as of now, how many vaccines has been actually given sanction to be used for emergency purpose. So one is Covaxin, the other one is Covishield, and the third one is Sputnik. Right, and to this we are adding the fourth one, Moderna's vaccine. So that's it. Okay, and India is also in talk with Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson to add to the vaccine available, and also Moderna vaccine can be stored for a period of 7 months at prescribed temperature and normal storage after the vial is opened in 30 days. So after the vial is opened, like in normal storage, it can stay up to 30 days, but in the suggested prescribed temperature, if you are keeping the vaccine, it will last up to 7 months, and its efficacy is said to be 94.1%. You just have to keep in mind which are the vaccines which has been given, the sanction for use for emergency purpose. Remember that it's for emergency use. These 4 vaccines are given sanction. Now we will look at Drug Controller General of India. So in the article I have told that Drug Controller General of India has given the approval, right? So who is Drug Controller General of India? So he is the person who is going to head the Central Drug Standard organization, who's going to head the Central Drug Standard Organization in the country. So it is a Central Drug Authority of India, and it comes under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And what are they going to do? They are going to give all these things they are going to have the responsible for licensing of approving licenses for different drugs that's going to be sold in India, in our country. And the headquarters is going to be in New Delhi. They are going to set standards for what kind of drugs should be imported and all those things. So this is actually a function of the CDSCO. So they are going to grant license to import drugs by government hospitals, drug approval under Drugs and Cosmetic Acts, recommend banning of drugs, and registration of foreign manufacturers. And okay, back to Drug Control General of India. So what is his function, his or her function? So as the DCGI, he or she is supposed to set standards for the manufacturing, sales, imports, and distribution of drugs in India. So when we are talking about drugs, the medicines that is going to be imported, sold, or manufacturing in our country, there should be some kind of standards, right? I mean, we need to check what kind of drugs they are going to, what kind of medicines, whether they can be misused or whether it's going to cause any kind of harm to the general public. So all these things are supposed to be done. So actually CDSCO is going to have multiple clinics to conduct tests and all. They have like 6 labs to do testing and all. So the standards are going to be set by Drug Control General of India. So certain standards should be there, that it should not have adverse effects on the general public. So such kind of standards is going to be set by the DCGI, and they are going to regulate medical and pharmaceutical devices. So whatever surgical equipments or whatever scanner, whatever it is, you have to check it's not going to create any kind of health issue for the people. So they are going to regulate all these devices, pharmaceutical or medical devices, and they are going to prepare and maintain national reference standard for drugs, and also they are going to find uniformity in the implementation of the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts. So remember, Drugs and Cosmetic Acts is going to be implemented by this DCGI and also the CDSCO. Okay, as you can see here, drug approval under Drugs and Cosmetic Acts is done by this authority at CDSCO. Okay, so that's all about it. The next article is about migrant workers. So the Supreme Court has recently, Tuesday, has said that government cannot abdicate its duties to feed migrant workers, especially during a pandemic, merely because they did not have a ration card. So government was not able to provide proper food, proper accommodation, proper kind of care for the migrant workers who are stuck at different parts of the country, right? Who are working in different parts of the country, because as a result of pandemic, there is a the employment rate has gone really down, and large number of migrant workers are there across the country who do not possess ration cards. This is because of the poverty and lack of education, and they are also in different parts they are living without being able to get a proper job. And also when you take the math, about 38 crore of migrant workers are there in the country. So it is like 1/4 of the population of our country. So the Supreme Court has said that the Supreme Court is really actually disappointed by the Labour Ministry not being taking proper action against this. And also the main point is that the Supreme Court has said that the government should not abdicate, it should not ignore, it should not stay away from its duty to provide proper food and support to the migrant workers. So we will look at some of the Supreme Court's instructions. You have to take down these points because it can be used to add value to your answers when you're writing answers to any questions that's related to this migrant workers. So the Supreme Court instructions are that the court order the state governments to frame schemes to distribute dry rations to migrant workers by July 31. Okay, so what should we do? The state government should frame schemes to distribute dry rations to migrant workers. Then the center has to supply additional quantity of food grains as state demands. So whatever demands that the state is working, the central government should give that kind of support, financial support, or supply of adequate amount of food should be done. So central and state should work together, and allocation of additional food grains and running of community kitchens in prominent places to feed workers should continue throughout the pandemic. So this has been done before, and the court is saying that it should continue. That there should be community kitchens which is going to feed the workers. There should be it should be located in prominent places so that they have access to it. So this should be continued throughout the pandemic is what Supreme Court has said. So we will look at the right to food. That the right to have food is actually whether it is whether it is provided in the Constitution or not. Okay, so the right to food is one of the bare necessities of life. Was an intrinsic part of the right to live with dignity. This is what the court has said. So where is it mentioned? So right to food comes under right to live. Okay, it is an intrinsic part of the right to live. So Article 21 of our Constitution, which is a fundamental right, says that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So at a first look, it won't seem like right to food or right to privacy or anything is in here. It just says no person shall be deprived of his life. It means they should not be killed. Direct meaning might appear like that, but through different interpretation, it has come to the point that the right to life is not just about the right to survive. Right to life doesn't mean just survive. Right to life means that you should be able to live with dignity, that you should be able to live a complete life of dignity and meaning. This will include many things. That, for example, you should have proper access to food, shelter, education, clean air, water, non-polluted environment, even right to privacy. All these things is inclusive of right to life. All these things are intrinsic part of the right to life. That's what the court has said through different judgments. So through different judgments, a lot of a list has been created. Like it will run more than this. So some of the important ones are like right to privacy, right to go abroad, right to shelter, against solitary confinement, right to social justice and academic empowerment, right against handcuffing or public hanging, doctor's assistance, proper health and medical aid. So like that, a lot of points are there which comes under the right to life. That is, which comes under Article 21, fundamental right provided to the citizens of the country. So apart from that, directive principle of state policy under this Article 39A and Article 47 also speaks in connection with this. So what does Article 39A says? That the state is required to direct its policies towards securing all of its citizens right to an adequate means of livelihood. So that is, again, see, these migrant peoples are right now facing job loss. They are not even able to take food, have food. So directive principle is actually, although it is not, directive principle is not, you will not be able to go to the court and say, this right has not, I'm not being able to access this right, because it is not, it's not a proper right. Directive principle of state policy is not a proper right. Article 32 cannot be evoked in this situation, but it is instructing the state. It's like a guideline to the state that state should do this. Okay, so it is a moral responsibility of the state to make sure that citizens have right to an adequate means of livelihood. And also Article 47 says that it is the duty of the state to raise the level of nutrition and standard of living of its people. Okay, so that the people should be able to have food which has proper nutrition, proper, and people should have better standard of living. So these things are mentioned in the Constitution. So that's all about that article. Now, next article, we have taken an editorial article which says, apt judicial reminder in era of over-criminalization, the criminal justice system needs to take note of the Delhi court's recent judgment on defining terrorism. So this article mainly talks about UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and other acts, similar acts like TADA and POTA, which is Terrorist and Disruptive Activities, which was Prevention Act, which was actually repealed in 1995, and Prevention of Terrorism Act, POTA, which was repealed in 2004. So what is more important here is Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Before that, we will go through a small quote which is mentioned by Montesquieu. It has been mentioned in this article. Every punishment which does not arise from absolute necessity is tyrannical. That when you are punishing someone which is not necessary, this is very much applicable in the present context in India. So you have seen a lot of, all over the news, you have seen anti-CAA protest people like those students and activists being charged with sedition case, and even UAPA or other people being charged on the lines of terrorism, calling them as urban nexus just because they have criticized the government or have a different perspective or ideology. So in that context, this court is very much meaningful in this in the present context. So we will talk about UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So this act was passed in 1967, and this unlawful activity that is mentioned here is any action taken by an individual or association intended to disrupt the territorial integrity and sovereignty of India. There is no problem here, right? Because you should not disrupt the territorial integrity and sovereignty of our country, because it is very important that we should take care of the security of the country. We have a very, we are not having a very friendly neighborhoods to the northern part of our country. You know what I'm defining to, who I'm pointing at. And then absolute power, it is giving absolute power to the central government. That's also in a sense fine, because you should have, when it comes to security issues, when it comes to terrorist activities, we need to give a strong hand to the government and strong hand to the security forces, so that such kind of negative forces are eliminated from our country. And death penalty and life imprisonment as highest punishment. Okay, highest punishment. Even that we can, it's not a big deal. Fine. Okay, those terrorists or people who are actually causing, killing other people and, bomb blasts, gun attacks, so all these things, they can go up to given this kind of punishment. Life imprisonment is fine, or even death penalty. Then both Indian and foreign nationals can be charged. Definitely, why not? Empowers government to ban organization for terrorist activities. Yes, terrorist activities, we should ban terrorist organization. Empowers National Investigation Agency to seize or attach, properties when the case is investigated by the said agency. Alright, so whenever we are, NIA is investigating someone who is, accused, who is convicted of the UAPA terrorism, of doing terrorism, the property can be, seized. And also, 2000 amendment says the government can designate individuals as terrorists too. Alright, so where does the problem start? In defining terrorist activities, the amendment used very broad language, that is talking about the 2019 amendment which has been made to the UAPA Act. Okay. Very broad language and applies to such offences which are considered to be committed to strike terror in the minds of people. So what does strike terror in the minds of people mean? So I'm gonna do something and you say it has strike terror in your mind, and that strike terror word is not mentioned. When it is not mentioned, that is not defined in the act. So what happens? It can be easily misused by the government. It can be misused by the government to arrest you when you are actually criticizing the government, right? So that's what happens with UAPA. So activists and students are being arrested under these provisions for the participation of anti-CAA protests. So anti-CAA protests, the Citizenship Amendment Act. So under this act, what has happened? You know the background very well, but still I will explain for those who have not known. So CAA is an act where citizenship is granted to those people, those neighbors, those minorities, that is minority people who are residing in our neighboring countries. This includes Hindu, Sikh population, or Jain population, even Christian population and all, but it does not include the Muslim population. So this is the kind of discrimination that this act has made. So when Rohingyan people, Rohingyan refugees want to take up the citizenship of India, it's not possible. But these people can easily take up the regulation, the kind of protocol that they have to follow in order to get citizenship has been eased. So this, against this law, there has been students who are protesting, there has been activists who are protesting. So that is a just cause. It's a cause we have to fight for, right? And dissent, criticizing the government's action or dissenting against the government is actually a important democratic ideal. We should be able to criticize our government. But dissent is actually labeled as anti-national. We have talked about in the previous video about section 124A of the IPC, where dissent law is used and to tackle all these activists and the students. And in that, even the punishment goes up to 2 years, right? And even up to life imprisonment. So okay, so this kind of vague terms being used in UAPA, which can be interpreted in multiple ways, which can be misused by the police force and the administration, the government at the same time, is actually causing the people much harm. It's actually taking away our democratic rights, the democratic ideals from us. And this is actually pretty much evident when you check the data, because from 2015 to 2019, 7,840 people were arrested under UAPA, and out of this only 155 were convicted, which clearly shows that most of them were not supposed to be, they're not really doing anything that's related to terrorism. Then similarly, the previous law, that is the Terrorist Activities Terrorist and Disrupting Activities Prevention Act, which was lapsed in 1995. So it was lapsed because it was being misused by the government at that time very much. Okay, and it has to be repealed soon. So until 1994, if you take the math, it's 67,000 were detained under this law, TARA, and only 725 were convicted. So this is the reality when it comes to UAPA. Now, when we say terrorism, again the word terrorism comes into the picture right here. So what is the meaning of terrorism? And when UAPA can justifiably be invoked? So these are the questions that are being raised in the article. So basically, there is no universal definition of the term terrorism. Actually, you can find the definition of terrorism, hundreds of definitions of terrorism can be found by different countries, by different organizations, but internationally, a definition where everybody is on the same page, where everybody agrees, and universal definition does not exist for the word terrorism. Now you would be thinking, why not? Well, some kind of international organization might have come up with a definition, right? But actually the truth is that the UN General Assembly had given this task to a committee, but no consensus has been reached in 50 years. So the word terrorism is kind of complicated, because one man's terrorist might be another man's freedom fighter. So when the British were ruling us, our freedom fighters were terrorists for them. Bhagat Singh was a terrorist for them, but he's a freedom fighter for us, right? So it's a matter of perspective. So as a result, it is quite difficult to define the word terrorism. That's one thing. And also, neither of this law, like TARA or UAPA, similarly in Indian context, do not have a definition for the terms like terror and terrorism. So why do we craft law? We craft a law because we have to be specific there. We have to actually, have a proper protocol in place, and we have to, find out, because if we do not have a proper definition, then that is not a proper law, right? Then anything can be done. It can be interpreted in multiple ways, and many people can be, convicted. So another example is that section 15 of UAPA says that as any act with the intent to threaten or likely to threaten the unity, integrity, security or sovereignty of India, or with intent to strike terror or likely to strike terror in the people. Just like I've said before, these terms are not really, it is a vague term, strike terror in the mind of people, and it's not being defined in the later stage. And like, how does UAPA say this? So UAPA, according to UAPA, how does terrorist act can be done? It is by using bombs, dynamite or other explosive substance or inflammable substance or firearms. All this is correct. Lethal weapons, poisonous, noxious gases, or by any other means of whatever nature to cause or likely to cause death or injuries. By any other means. So these means has not been defined again. So what has the Supreme Court taught? So in a recent case in 2013, Yaqub Abdul Razak Maimon case, what the Supreme Court has said is that terrorist acts can range from threats to actual assassinations, kidnappings, airline hijacking, car bombs, explosions, mailing of dangerous materials, use of chemical, biological, nuclear weapons, etc. And then the court goes on to say that since these people who have been convicted under this case has not done any of these things, they cannot be charged under the UAPA. So they were, let free. So similarly, in Hidendra Vishnu Thakur case, Supreme Court said that use of violence when its most important result is not merely the physical and mental damage of the victim, but the prolonged psychological effect it produces on the society as a whole. Its main objective is to overthrow the government or disturb the harmony of society or terrorize the people. Thus, what distinguishes terrorism from other forms of violence is that deliberate and systematic use of coercive intimidation. So there should be a deliberate and systematic use of coercion to term it as terrorism. And another case is that Ram Manohar Lohia case. So here the Supreme Court has actually set a definition. They have differentiated between multiple definitions. For example, the Supreme Court said that now law and order, public order and security of state is different. I mean, law and order, the security of the state will come under public order, and public order will come under law and order. But just because you have violated any law that's here, you cannot be actually charged for this one being threatening the public order or threatening the security of the state. That is, just because you have quoted but some slogan criticizing the government or the country's policies, you cannot be charged for the kind of law that's required to punish you for blasting a bomb or shooting someone. That cannot be done. And the court goes on to say that in most UAPA cases, the police have failed to understand these distinctions and unnecessarily claim UAPA charges for simple violations of law and order. Remember, this case is 1966, and right now is the same thing that's been happening, right? And also another one, Delhi court. Since the definition of a terrorist act in UAPA is wide and somewhat vague, it cannot be casually applied to ordinary conventional crimes, and the act of accused must reflect the essential character of terrorism. So time and time, what the different courts in the country have said, what the different judges have said is that for something, some ordinary conventional crimes, UAPA should not be charged, or other laws like UAPA, like TADA or POTA should not be charged. Now the question comes, should UAPA be repealed? Now it's not about repealing UAPA. Now it is about taking away the freedom of the citizen of our country. Now if you think about it, laws are required, regulations are required for the safety of those people who are protecting us, police officers, armed forces officers. These people risk their lives to protect our country, to protect our public order to take care of the security of the state. Now there should be laws in place for smooth functioning of their operations. That should definitely be there, but it should not be at the cost of our fundamental rights. That is the rights that's given to us by our constitution, right to freedom of speech and expression. Because once that is taken away from our people, then we are not a proper democracy anymore, right? So there should be changes. There should be proper, when laws like this are created, there should be proper definition. It should not give a room for any kind of speculation where it can be misused by the forces, the dark forces, whether they are in the police force or the administration or in the political class. It should not be there. It should be there for the best interest of the people, right? So that's all about it. For more such videos, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us in our Telegram channel, our social media. We are very active there, and do subscribe to do visit our website where you can gain access to the kind of materials we provide, daily current affairs, blogs, and even you can see our course structure. And whenever you want, you can contact us for proper guidance. So that's all about it. Thanks for watching the video.